tonight will be probably pretty speedy. We've got a lot of content we need to get through. What I'll ask is that if you have any questions, we might have time for one or two for each of our speakers, but keep your questions in the chat so we can get through our speaker list this afternoon. Before I pass over to Alison Jones for a welcoming and an update, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all meeting tonight. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I just wanted to take a quick chance to thank our speakers for jumping on and taking time out of their evening, and everyone else who jumped on tonight for this webinar update. So tonight we will have a Cherry Growers Australia update by our new president, Alison Jones. We'll then have export updates and the launch of the export manual with Patrick Alua and Wayne Prowse. We'll then have a quick chat by Yemee Fernandes around working in the Indian markets. And then Jane Lovell's going to give us a bit of an update on chemical use for the Export Toolkit project. And then I'm going to finish it all off with the launch of the annual needs survey, and hopefully encourage everyone to submit that and fill it out for us. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass over to our new president, Alison Jones.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank you, Jess and Geeta, for organising these evenings. I think it's really good. It gives the opportunity to get more members of the family in to participate and share, and in more of a leisurely framework instead of, you know, snaffling time out of your day. So I think it's a great initiative. Thank you. I'd also like to just outline some of the other members that have been come onto the board. Brent McClintock is Vice President from Tasmania, and Samantha Flannery is Treasurer from New South Wales. So great to have some new blood also on the CGA, and we're all working really well together, and it's, yeah, going along really well. We're not far off rolling out the new restructure again. We've got a reduced outlook on what it entails, which is hopefully going to be going out in April. And it's just concise and just outlines the fact that the current structure is outdated, as it's been led by predominantly volunteers. It lacks funding and to proactively and strategically tackle, you know, big opportunities. We want to engage in essential government lobbying and contribute to the profitability and longevity of the industry. And CGA's current activities and funding are predominantly around projects, which is quite limiting. We're looking at having a board that are respected and powerful voice that can lead the industry forward, and a collective strength by bringing all growers under the one umbrella. Well-defined responsibilities and expectations, and government agencies, export markets, industry bodies and trade development are some of the things that we'll be able to focus more heavily on, and also being available and representative all year round will also help with our representation. So that will all be hopefully well received, and it'll be skills based, and all growers of all different sizes will be represented. So it'll be very inclusionary is the model. So once again, like I say, that will be hopefully going out in April. Also been doing a little bit of work with HIAL, have got an ideation program going, which helps to just liaise with industry on projects going forward as to what they want to see put forward to the SIAP. So that's another good initiative that's happening. And also we're working on a national conference, which is going to be in Tasmania. I really recommend that anyone thinking about it, please do come along. It's a fantastic opportunity to get together with like-minded growers. Always said that cherry industry isn't big, but we're really passionate about what we do. And one of the great things is getting together with like-minded people, and it just gives yourself and your industry or your business a great boost and buzz, and there's nothing like getting together with like-minded people. So please have a look at the agenda. The girls and the group have put a lot of work into it, still putting a fair bit of work into it, but a great opportunity to all get together. So looking forward to catching up with many of you there. And that's...
sorry, I think we've got a screen share happening. Cliff, sorry, do you mind unsharing your screen?
I don't know what I'm doing.
That's okay. I think I might be able to boot you off, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe Geeta, you might have to. I don't really think I have control. That's okay. While we're waiting for that, I'll just thank you, Alison. Does anyone have any very quick questions for Alison while we're just waiting for screen share to stop?
All this information will be released very shortly. It's just to be finalised, which it's been in the finalisation for quite some time, but we're just getting the proposal just fine-tuned, and then it will be out.
Perfect. Very exciting. All right, I'll encourage anyone else, if you have any other questions for Alison, just please pop them in the chat. We're really keen to have and really excited to have Alison on board actually as the president, and looking forward for this project to work quite closely as we have been with Cherry Growers Australia, and seeing how we can better serve the cherry industry and the cherry peak industry body. So yes, Alison's very approachable, so please get in touch if you need.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Patrick Allure. Everyone hopefully knows who Patrick is. He's the export manager with CGA, and he's got some very exciting news to share with us tonight.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent.
Sound good, Patrick.
Excellent.
All good.
So I'll click that. All right. Now, is my screen moving?
You just need to pop it into presentation mode.
Yeah, I'm trying. Oh, yeah, there it is. All right. So I will only take a couple of minutes of your time. I want to be able to share with you that from today we are officially launching the Cherry Export Manual for edition 2024. So we have streamlined the manual. The manual used to be 422 pages, but I have condensed all that in 52 pages. Now, it doesn't mean that the rest of the information was not useful. Of course, it was useful, but I have decided that it was better to separate some of that information. So everything that it is to do with integrated pest and disease management, all those chapters have been removed from the actual manual, and a separate manual will be produced on integrated pest and disease management, separate from the information that we need in order just for export regulations and how to do exports. That is what has been left in the export manual. The rest will be provided in a separate manual. Now, I have tried to produce or to develop a manual that is going to be very practical. I would like this to be like a handbook for the growers, packers, and exporters, something that you may be able to use for training new staff. If you have new staff, this would be the type of manual that would be useful to them so they can learn all about exports. Or even for yourself, even if you're experienced, you haven't done some of the work for a few months because you haven't been exporting for a few months, this becomes a very quick reference guide that you can use to remember, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do that, or I'm supposed to register here and there, and all the links are included in the manual itself. I didn't reinvent the wheel with the manual. I made sure that any manual that I was able to check and try to find good ideas. That's what I did. I checked the guided pathways to successful trade from Fruit Grower Tasmania, the Austrade Global Kit, the Australian Apple Manual, and also the Avocado Industry Best Practice Resource. So I took any good idea that I found in all those manuals and everything that was relevant to the cherry industry. That's what I included in the export manual. So I'm excited about the manual. I think I got it right, but it's not perfect. It will be improved every year. So we will have an edition 2025 next year. I already have some feedback and I'm going to include that next year. And so any feedback that you have that you might want to share with me, please do so. The contents, I put, of course, an introduction about exports, all the planning and preparation that you need to do, orchard management, packhouse management, endpoint treatments, export authorization, transport, in-market customs clearance, and ongoing commitment. So as you can see from the index, you can see that everything that it is related to export, that, you know, the must-know type of information is already there. Everything else will be offered in separate manuals, but here at least you get really what it is essential. To find the manual, you will need to go to cherrygrowers.org.au. You go to the member association section, and then from there on the members area, once you're in there, you go to the export manual. So you need to go to and obviously you need to be registered to be able to enter in that section. It is not open to the whole public. You will need to register in order to be able to get to that section. And as I said, the manual, in my opinion, because I wrote it myself, is pretty good. No, just joking. But I think it's good. It's a good manual, but not perfect. So any feedback that you have, anything that I have missed, anything that you think it could be done better, please send me an email and I'll be happy to include those comments and make an even better version for next year. So that's what I had for you today. And so thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm really excited to see that you've got it down from 400 pages to 52. That's going to make it a lot easier for the growers and those who need to read that document. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Patrick while we've got him? You've stunned everyone, Patrick. Just use that chat function again. But if you think of any questions after this, Patrick's email address, I'll get him to pop it in the chat for you all. It's export@cherrygrowers.org.au. So if you need to get any questions, and like Gita said in the chat, you can also get in touch with CGA and they'll provide a copy of that manual as well. So our next speaker is Wayne Prowse. Now, Wayne is going to give us a very quick summary on all the exports that have happened over the 23-24 season. I've asked him to keep some cards to his chest because he's going to be one of our speakers at the export workshop as part of the conference on the 31st of July. So this is just basically a sneak peek into what you might get in the export workshop. So I've got your presentation, Wayne, and okay, I'll share, and you just let me know when you would like to move on.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Good to be with you. We've certainly had an interesting ride through this season. So if we go to the first slide, they're the big numbers. The big numbers. Now, this is preliminary. It's based on ABS to the end of January, plus the DAF figures for weekly to the end of February and extrapolated values in January per unit. So it's not perfect yet, but we're just waiting on the final data. 4,097 tonnes. So yes, we got over 4,000 tonnes. It's 43% up. The value was 86 million. Up about 29%, which meant the unit values was down 10%. And that is the figure that's recorded in the export documentation, not necessarily the farm gate price, but what the invoice is after all the costs to get it on the water or aircraft in the case it's for cherries. Now, whilst the 43% is exciting growth, if we look at the next slide, it puts it in context of where we've been in the last 10 years. So we're hoping for 4,500 tonnes to get it back to those late teen figures, but we got over 4,000 tonnes. The last 2 years have been much worse, as you would all well and truly know. So getting over 4,000 tonnes was good, but it's still not a long-term growth. It's getting back to where it was from around 2017 to 2020, pre-COVID years. The interesting thing about that is that the unit values, though, have a considerable increase over the last decade. Yes, it eased a bit last year, but then the previous year, as in the season before last, which was a very poor season, had much higher prices for the lower. If we look now at the next slide, we see where it is by week. And if you've been following the charts that I've been doing each week, you'll see that we had an interesting ride where the first 4 weeks we were going at extreme exponential growth, many hundreds of percent higher up until the end of November from the New South Wales area. Then it was fairly flat at around 200 tonnes a week until the end of December. Then Tasmania kicked in and it went to a peak of about 600 tonnes. The peak was a little bit later because mainly of Chinese New Year and pushing fruit into Asia a little bit later. It wasn't the urgent get it over there before the middle of January because Chinese New Year being early February this year. And then, of course, it tapered off very quickly by the end of February. So that's the pattern. Not unlike previous years, but you can see what a rapid rise it was in the beginning of the year season, but it didn't continue at that level, of course. That's the weekly. Now we look at the next part is the states. Tasmania was up about 12%, a little over 2,000 tonnes. Victoria, as expected, was 136% up. That was significant growth because of the very poor previous season. Similarly, New South Wales off a lower base was 80% higher, and South Australia was knocked around by the storms earlier in the season, which knocked out a lot of their crops, so they were slightly higher. So that's the state. If we then move to the markets, Hong Kong was up 22%, which was the strongest market. Some of that probably going through to China, we never really know. But China itself was up 140% to 590 tonnes, almost 600 tonnes. So not the highest it's ever been, but certainly a big improvement on last year. Taiwan, all from Tasmania, up nearly 70% was a good result. Most of the others certainly up, even Malaysia up 108%, South Korea from nothing to 47 tonnes. So at least it's back on the map. Japan down slightly, but Japan has never really fired at all since we've had the access there, and the other competitors don't do much better. So that's our markets. Now we look at the global trade, or at least from the Southern Hemisphere, I should say, and that puts our 4,097 tonnes into perspective. Yes, we were up 43%, but Chile, 414,000 tonnes. We were not even 1%, 0.1% of that. They were marginally higher. We've seen the media today out in Fresh Plaza and so forth saying Chile got a record result. Well, they just scraped in with a record, but they kept a lot of fruit back from other markets to put a little bit more into China. They did about 360,000 tonnes to China. Argentina at 4,800 tonnes was up 14%. You might think, what are we worried about Argentina for? Well, 30% of that did go over to China and a little bit into other Asian markets. South Africa has got a small fledgling market that is starting to grow, most of that going up to Asia, to Europe at the time, a little bit coming to Asia. Of course, talked about our results, and New Zealand just ahead of us with 30% growth, very strong into Taiwan as well as China. Finally, just to sum up the Asian growth, yes, we've still got considerable growth into the Asian markets, dominated by China and the Chilean fruit going into China. Everywhere else in Asia is makes up the top of that chart. We'll go into more detail at other occasions when we've got a little bit more time looking at the markets of interest to us, but that's just Asia and the growth, and very much driven by Chile. So we're now just looking at a few numbers in the final slide. We've got a bit of a matrix. You probably know that I like doing a matrix from time to time. And Chile here is trade only to Asia. So our left-hand column there, we did 3,668 tonnes to Asia, the other 200 tonnes to non-Asia, probably Pacific Islands and a few other places, but a little bit to the US. But we did 3,868 tonnes. At the top there, our biggest market, Hong Kong, we actually had about 54% of the total trade in our season into Hong Kong. That's not Northern Hemisphere, of course, that's your Southern Hemisphere. So we were certainly ahead of everyone else going into Hong Kong itself. China, what can I say? 376,000 tonnes out of Chile. We were 0.2% of that. Yes, we really went up. We more than doubled to 591 tonnes. New Zealand was ahead of us at 875. And as I mentioned before, Argentina is also a significant player at our level at 1,600 tonnes. And Vietnam, 555, we were just ahead of New Zealand there, but Chile has got newer access and they are up. So I won't run through all that. Taiwan, just to mention there, good growth for us, but we're still a small player even compared to Chile and New Zealand. So that's just a snapshot of our growth, but also our perspective and context of where we were playing in the global market, and particularly Asia. So happy to take a couple of questions, but that's it for a summary at the moment. So good result, good growth, but we are a small player. So there's a lot. My take out from that is that there is a lot of opportunity in taking market share from other players and growing the market. Our question is whether we've got the capacity to supply, and that becomes the challenge for all of us.
Thanks, Wayne. That was incredibly interesting. It's really good to actually reflect on when you're in the heat of everything, you're not sure what everyone else is doing. So it's good to reflect on what markets we actually accessed, how much fruit was sent to where, and understand a little bit more on what the other countries were doing. And it surprised me, New Zealand, actually. That's something that I was surprised about. Their tonnage is very similar to ours. Does anyone have any questions for Wayne? There is a chat. Oh, that's just Patrick's email.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Wayne.
Well,
Just to plug again that Wayne will be at the National Cherry Growers Conference. So if you're interested to hear a little bit more, you'll have to come along to that. I will now pass on to Yemee Fernandes. Now, Yemee is the co-founder of 4 Pillars Trading in Australia and has been working a little bit in the Indian markets. And so we've asked Yemee to come along tonight just to give us a little bit of perspective on what's happening in those markets and how we might be able to extrapolate on them. Well, Yemee, you're just on mute too.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I think it's cherries is exciting for me because I do consume a lot of it myself. I actually went cherry picking last year in Victoria. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm of Indian heritage. So I've got was born and bred in India and moved to Australia in '98. So The beauty of what I've got is a real good cocktail fusion of the two countries. So that's my sort of my I would say my introduction to this presentation. I'll just can everyone see my screen?
Yep, it's in presentation mode too. We can
Okay.
see it well.
It's just not, sorry. Okay, perfect. Understanding India. I think, you know, from a India perspective, there's a lot of information out there currently between Australia and India with our free trade agreement. So there is information both from government as well as organisations doing a lot of great work in the Indian market. 4 Pillars Trading Australia also exclusively took the Australian macadamias, launched Australian macadamias in the Indian market last year. So that was a very successful launch for us. We've also worked and working still with macadamias, but also working with Riverland Wines for their launch into the Indian market. Something that is interesting, which probably a lot of people do or don't know, India has the world's largest youth population. So more than 60% of our population is under the age of 30. And this is exciting because the youth population means experimentation. They're ready for new things. They're also more interested in what's happening globally because of the connectivity of that youth population. India is a democracy. We've got over 300 dialects. We are a state-based country as well. So each state is a different country, I say. So even if born and bred Mumbai myself, I would say north, south of Mumbai is completely different in terms of people, language, as well as food. So it is a diverse country. When I think of India, I think of, 3 words, authentic, real, and random. So India is a market that diversity is at the core of what the country is. It is also a extremely homogenous country, even though it's so diverse. So even though it has 300 dialects, it has many religions, it has people from all over, it is a very homogenous country, and it is very real. It is very authentic, and that for Australia is exciting because again that diversity means experimentation, and that youth population means experimentation. Indian classification, consumer classification from a marketing point of view, is really divided into 3 parts. There's India A, B, and C. India A is and A plus is where really a lot of Australian products sit because of its premiumness, its pricing in the market. So you're looking at approximately 50 million homes. And then that India A plus, what we call the globalized Indian. A globalized Indian is someone who's well-traveled, has children living abroad, has also access to mobile phone connectivity, and is that high net worth individual. So those homes that India A plus 1, I would say is 10 million homes. So that's, we're looking at about 40 million customers. And for them, the biggest issue I would say is access. It's also wanting great premium products, and price would be the 3rd consideration for them on quality. India, when I was in India and born and bred, as I said, Indian, I moved to Australia in '98. Every year when I go back to India, I'm just baffled with the connectivity of the mobile phone users, the smartphone users. So currently India has 500 million plus internet and mobile users, smartphone users, again, which means that when it comes to Instagram, when it comes to social connectivity, when it comes to digital connectivity, they are connected. They know exactly what's happening around the world. They know exactly what the food trends are around the world. They follow Australian MasterChef, which is the #1 cooking show in India. And they do want to know what's happening around the world. And that connectivity gives them access to what is happening around the world, which never was possible before. So with that connectivity comes that whole, again, integration and experimentation. Post the pandemic, things have changed, not just in India, it's happened across the world. Lifestyle changes. So India is a lot more conscious, that youth population, that mobile demographic is very conscious of health and well-being. So they are looking at hygiene. They are looking at provenance. They do want good quality products. They engage in fitness and nutrition-based content. So again, content is it's a key thing with India when you're trying to sell to India, is how do you make the product or the produce appealing from a content point of view, because of that connectivity, because of those 500 million users that are on the mobile phone. Boosting immunity. They also understand, different parts of the world and how the produce. So they do understand the difference between what's coming out of Africa or what's coming out of Asia as opposed to what's coming out of Australia. Australia does have the clean and green image, but I think we are beyond that. We are beyond the clean and green image. We're actually known for our production standards, our processing standards, the way we pack, the quality, the standards. So beyond the clean and green, we actually have that visibility in the Indian market. India, from a retail perspective, is the fastest growing market in the world. India is divided into four, and also the fifth element, which I'll talk about. India is divided into four parts of retail. So you have modern trade, which is your premium stores. You have wholesale, which is your wet markets and your wholesale markets. You've got mom and pop stores, what we call kirana stores. And then you've also got online marketplaces, your Amazon and your big baskets. The fifth element is your quick commerce, what we call the quick commerce and direct-to-consumer stores. And that really is growing considerably in the Indian market, because, again, going back to that connectivity and technology and innovation. So that quick commerce is all about groceries. It's all about getting the, milk, bread to you in 15 minutes. That's the kind of connectivity the quick commerce, some of the big quick commerce providers have. India's organized retail, which is great for us, is growing at 45 to 50%. And that's because a lot of supermarkets like your Nature's Basket, Reliance, which are your publicly listed companies, are growing their footprint in the Indian market. And that, again, comes down to that omni-channel offering that a lot of the organized retail are offering. So it's online and offline. So that sector is growing, and that's great for us. When it comes to, again, Autopie is a leading agri-tech startup specializing in fresh fruit and vegetables. And when they ask their consumers about, the way they consume fresh fruit and vegetables, 50% of them said certification and traceability and provenance is extremely important. And this is going to get even more important in a market like India. Food safety, food fraud is quite prominent. So we as Australians, I would say, are at a fantastic, I feel very proud when I go to India and talk about produce coming from Australia, because we have that food safety, we have that food provenance. We can stand, hand on our heart and say that our certification is not bought. We can't buy our certification. So that for us is a huge USP in a market like India, that transparent information in the market. Because of the rapid digitization, there is a demographic dividend, there is market accessibility. The time is now. I know a lot of companies and organizations, and everyone I talk to, they said, oh, yes, we've tried India. It's not worked 10 years ago or 5 years ago. India, 6 months from now, has changed. And that's because of that innovation, technology, omni-channel, digitization, demographic dividend, and market accessibility. What used to be a fragmented, disorganized, unorganized retail is now becoming organized because of innovation, because of infrastructure, because of investment in logistics, investment in cold chain. So that again is an exciting time. It's the right time to enter a market like India. And not to say that there's, India doesn't have its issues, it does, but I think that from a market accessibility perspective, it is the right time to enter a market like India. Key takeaways: storytelling, quality, premium, and value conscious, long-term view beyond just transactional. I hear a lot about India being a price-conscious market. India is not a price-conscious market. It's a value-conscious market. People will pay the money as long as they see value, they see the quality, and they see the product as premium. So they will pay 3-5 times a local price of a domestic product. Storytelling. Let's not be afraid to tell our story. I mean, the provenance story is extremely strong in a market like India. And Indians love a good story. You know, we've got the biggest theatre and Bollywood, you know, the biggest cinemas. So you talk about storytelling, we love a good story. We want to know where the product's coming from. We want to know your story. And that's never happened before. But because of 600 million people being on that mobile phone, we can now tell our story directly to that consumer. India is a long-term market, and looking at Wayne's presentation with China and countries like that, it is a long-term market. So investment in a market like India is not immediate, it's not transactional, it is a relationship. I say it is a marriage. So if we're going into a market like India, don't expect overnight results, but invest in the market, invest in the relationships, find the right partners, and invest in it from a long-term perspective. These are some of the photos I just thought in terms of where I see the cherries, so especially Australian cherries fitting in, is that premium space. So these are just some of the photos of actual supermarkets in India. Again, you know, there are the wet markets, so I haven't put photos of that, but I can send that across to you. I don't see a lot of those products sitting in the wet markets, but this is the access, the modern retail trade that we have access to. And the other is the institutional food service and HoReCa space that I think is untapped as well. Many dreams, many chances, one India, one Australia. We're ready.
Thank you so much, Yemee. And I found that really interesting, just understanding the population a little bit more and how that's changed. And a lot of, like you said, a lot of these changes have happened after COVID. But India more so, yeah, understanding what they're looking for and paying that high premium price on quality and value. So that, yeah, really interesting. Does anyone have any quick questions for Yemee? Very quiet bunch tonight. Past everyone's bedtime. Well, Yemee's contact details we can share as well. They were just on the slide, so hopefully you captured that, but otherwise they'll be available. I will now pass on to Jane to finish up our presentation. So Jane Lovell is from the Chemical Use for Export Toolkit project, and she's just going to give us a very quick update on where that project is at the moment.
Good evening. I hope everyone can see the screen. It's that moment where you...
Yes.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so thank you. And thanks, Yemee. I love hearing the story of India. I'm going to weave a little bit of the story of India into the Chemical Use for Export Toolkit project. So first of all, just to recognise that this project was funded by AgVic. So we thank them for being innovators in this space, and was actually 3 different peak industry bodies working together. So cherry growers, Australian Table Grape Association and Summerfruit. And I came into it sort of maybe May last year. It's been running for a few years before that. So I don't have all of the background on the project, but I have enough to get me through to give you a presentation. Hoping that it now, yeah, okay. So I guess the question is why was this project put together? And basically, I think it stems from the fact that maximum residue limits, as you would all be aware, vary across the world. So we cannot in Australia assume if we're looking to export cherries that abiding by the chemical label here will mean that your fruit meets the MRLs in any particular export market. So this leaves us with a bit of a dilemma, how to make sure that we actually are safe and our product is safe and meets the regulatory requirements in our target market. So how do you go about doing that, safely exporting? Well, the first thing you need to do is know what the MRLs are in the markets that you're targeting. That is easier than it used to be when I first started playing with onion export, where we actually got the Japanese MRLs in Japanese, which didn't really help us because we didn't understand anything that we were reading. But it is something that can be a bit of a challenge for some growers, and we have a solution for you that I'll talk about in a moment. You then need to make a plan for how you're going to manage your agricultural chemical applications, particularly if the MRL in the target market is lower than that of Australia. If it's the other way around, if the MRL in your target export market is higher, then abiding by the label in Australia should see you pretty safe in that export market. And then, as always, people will know me, I've got a food safety and quality assurance background. I'm going to be the one that says back up your management plan with an MRL test against the target market's MRLs, just to make sure that that everything's going to go okay if your product's tested overseas and you are compliant. So the project was basically looking at that and how we could actually enhance the toolkit for potential exporters and exporters from Australia. And so the first thing that the project created, and I hope that you've all got a copy of this, is that piece of information about knowing what the MRLs are in your target market. So this little app, Oz Cherry Sure, and there's the link there. Thoroughly recommend people download that. I've had a bit of a play with it, and you can determine for all the different markets that you might be interested in exporting to, for the chemicals that you might be likely to use, for the bugs that you might be trying to deal with, you can actually work out what the MRLs are. And here's an example, one of my favourites. I started work playing with this chemical, Clartan, for apple dimpling bug in apples. And it's pretty deadly on predatory mites. But the important thing here, focusing on India, if we were wanting to use Clartan and we were looking to export to India, you can see that the maximum residue limit in India is 0.01, whilst in Australia it's 0.05. So this is one of those chemicals where if you use this in Australia according to the label, so by the label rate and by the withholding period, you are likely to fall foul of the MRLs in India, which leaves growers with a real conundrum. If this is the only chemical in your arsenal, then what are you going to do if you really want to target the Indian market? So first takeout is grab this app and you can look up and find out this sort of information. So then if you do have this problem, so we're targeting India and we need to use Clartan, what are we going to do now? So here are some options. Some of them are good options and some of them are not so good options. So the first one, you could think about finding an alternate control method. So is there another chemical you could use? You could say, well, India is just too hard. Sorry, Yemee, fantastic opportunities that you've identified there. Was going to make me insanely rich, but I can't go there because I can't use Clartan. So you could choose to send your fruit somewhere else. You could probably not do this one, export to India and just hope that no one tests it. You risk your brand and you risk the brand Australia, definitely not what we would be recommending. You could have a crack at reducing the rate that's applied. That's not legal in a lot of states. Absolutely don't recommend it. Can lead you to all kinds of trouble with resistance developing. You could have a crack at extending the withholding period. And when I used to play in this space a lot more than I do now, people would say, well, how long? How much longer? Don't know. Have a guess. You could use it and you could test the fruit before exporting. Now, the project looked at those options and said, well, maybe there's one there that we could actually do something useful around, and that's the one around looking to extend the withholding period. So that's exactly what the project did, and this document that you can see on the screen is available from a website. I'll give you the information right at the end. So for certain chemicals, and there are caveats all over this, for certain chemicals, it is possible to be able to look to extend the withholding period based on science. I'm not going to go into all the details. We ran webinars on how to do this late last year. It needs to be done professionally, it needs to be done carefully, but there are now a number of chemicals where what we're calling an XWHP, so an extended withholding period, can be calculated, and you can use it with some confidence that you will then meet the MRLs in your destination market. But as I said before, I always recommend you back it up with a residue test. So this is a potential option. Question that I'll just leave with you all. If when you're looking through Oz Cherry Shore and you're considering markets, if there are chemicals that you think need to have an extended withholding period calculated, there may be the opportunity for CGA to get some assistance to get those extended withholding periods calculated. So please I'm going to name Patrick. Let Patrick know. We might add a page to your manual, Patrick, and make it 53. Okay, so that was the second major outcome of this fantastic project. The third is that we've created some really nice posters and a document, a booklet that actually takes you through and shows you the impact of a number of chemicals on some of the beneficials that you might be wanting to encourage. So those posters are available. They've been tailored for cherries, for grapes, and for summer fruit. I'd love to see one up in everybody's spray sheds. And I'd like you to remember, because we're going to be doing an evaluation of all of this a little later, like June. And I would love you all to be able to answer favourably that you thought it was a great project and you saw the poster. So there's also a booklet that we've created on ways of encouraging beneficials. So the kinds of plants, trees, shrubs that you might want to plant to encourage beneficials. So all part of that integrated pest and disease management. This is an example of the book, something from the booklet. So it shows you different plants and what they're good for. And all of that, and I know it's a massive brain dump, but all of that is available on the Horticulture Industry Network's website. It's known as the HIN website. There's the address. If you haven't got I'm assuming, Jess, that some communication around the outcomes will be, so you'll be able to access that. Every document and every piece of information that I've just referred to is linked out of that website. So if you're interested and want more information, that's where to go. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jane. With those documents, have you got hard copies available of those documents as well?
No.
We might, I'll talk to you offline, but we might, be able to grab some copies of that and then give them out maybe at our face-to-face events throughout the year too, to get those spread a little bit wider.
That would be awesome.
But I will link, and we might pop this in the next newsletter, all those documents too for everyone to get a hold of. But yeah, we can talk about that offline, Jane. Any questions for Jane? Okay, Jane, you're off the hook. I would encourage everyone, once you've processed that information and had a look at the resources, please get in touch with Jane. These projects, feedback is so important because, as I often say, we're not mind readers. So you need to tell us what you would like to see and how it works. Surveys I know are annoying, but we need to hear the feedback. Okay, so I'm just going to share the last of my screen and then we'll let you all go tonight. But speaking of surveys, as part of the, and sorry, I just want to make my screen a bit bigger. As part of the extension and communication project, we need to do what we call an annual needs survey. And I don't know why, but my computer is not letting me go bigger. So we're just going to go zoom in for everyone. So as part of the extension and communication network, each year we have to do an annual needs survey. Now, I know it sounds cumbersome, but this is the only way that we're able to get real information and feedback from the growers. This is also a really good opportunity for us to start to understand production and what our industry is looking like, where our industry might be located. It's not an individual understanding what you do on your orchard. It's more around what is our industry doing? What do our growing regions look like? What are some of the varieties, which will then allow us to forecast on markets means that when new people are coming in, we're not saturating different markets as well, because we're not all trying to grow the same varieties at the exact same time and sending to the same markets. So there's the market aspect, but there's also the ability for us to then target some of our workshops and these types of webinars. We're going to start to move into more production focused webinars now into the winter period because the season's over. So we'll be delivering a lot more of those, but understanding what's actually needed. We're not mind readers, so we really appreciate, and I don't grow cherries, so I really, need to know what you guys want to see. So this is the QR code, which will take you to the online form. I'm also going to be launching a campaign, so you'll be very sick of my voice, I think, over the next few weeks. We've got a video which will outline what the survey is and what happens to your information and what we're going to use it for. But I'm also going to give everyone the opportunity to either do the survey as more of an interview over the phone with myself, or we're going to get some of the regional development partners and myself out in the field, and we'll just be asking questions that will attribute to this survey. So we're going to keep it as casual as possible. But if you don't like any of those options, this online version is also available. What I'll also try and do is grab you at the conference as well and just try and pick your brains a little bit more. But these are your levy funds, and I really want to put them to good use. So I really appreciate if it would just take 10 minutes of your time to fill out the survey, and then we can build upon it each year of the project. So, now I have to go back a little bit. Sorry, our technology today is not great. Just another plug, the conference is being run the 31st of July to the 2nd of August. All registrations are now on the website. Early bird rates are until the 30th of April. This gives you $200 off the full package. So please, please, please get your tickets in early, and that'll save you a fair bit of money. The agenda, I'm just collating the last of our speaker profiles to put that up online so you'll know who's speaking, and you'll be able to pick the days that you'd like to attend. I would recommend probably coming to all three. And we've got some really exciting news about the industry dinner and what's happening at that coming very soon. And if anyone's out there still online who has a business and would like to sponsor the conference, please, we still have a few packages left. They are selling out very, very quickly, but more than happy to chat to anyone around how we might be able to support getting your business out there. This conference is specifically for growers. So if you're looking to get in and network a little bit more with growers, this is the perfect opportunity. So please jump online and view our prospectus. But that is all from me tonight. We have 4 minutes. Does anyone have any other questions for the guests while we have them on? We've just got a question from Darren. Yes, so as part of the project, Darren, well, the question is the members area of CGA website where the info is consolidated lately been on Facebook being more used? Is there a plan for a central repository? So as part of this project, and Geeta has put a comment in the chat, as part of this project, it is our job to update that website, and Geeta has been doing a lot of work on getting that up to date. I've seen a few sneak peeks and it's looking awesome. So on that, we're going to have all your research and development updates. We're going to have events. There'll be calendars. There'll be everything that you can possibly think of. Our main forms of communication, though, are that newsletter, but we're also trying to have a larger social media presence. So anything that's put on Facebook or our LinkedIn will also be put onto our website and also in the newsletter. So if you're connected to one and not the other, you won't miss out. Most of the content will remain the same. And yeah, once the website's up and running, would love to hear any feedback on that as well, because it will be an ongoing process of updating that too. Perfect. Okay. Well, I'll just take this moment to thank Alison, Yemee, Patrick, Wayne, Jane, and have I forgotten anyone? I don't think so. But really appreciate our speakers tonight. I also just want to say a very quick thank you to Geeta, who is behind the scenes and puts all of these webinars and promo out for us. So thank you again, Geeta. And yes, please have a look at the survey for the annual needs and jump on and register for the conference. And hopefully we will see you all in Hobart. But thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Jess, and thank you, Geeta. Great work again.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Alison.
everyone.